The transport shuttle's cooling thrusters hadn't even faded when Professor Amanda Walsh disembarked onto the gleaming main platform of the Galactic Military Academy. She instinctively secured her tablet under one arm, glanced at her watch, and murmured a comment about the predictability of official travel. Had any of the 3 diplomatic corps present been privy to her thought, their nerves would have been frayed. But they weren't listening, their attention entirely captivated. Amanda Walsh presented as nothing more than a human academic in her early 40s, a seasoned educator in military history from Earth's formidable Combined Defense Institute. Of average stature, with practical brown hair drawn into a neat ponytail, she wore a dark, unpretentious academic blazer over matching trousers. She seemed entirely unremarkable, utterly devoid of any perceived threat. Yet her reputation preceded her. "There she is," a hushed whisper from Kadak Kuthal, a promising young mind from the Hijgamani's military elite, his multifaceted eyes tracking her every movement. "The human. She appears harmless," countered his study companion, a crystalline entity whose civilization had mastered 17 star systems through sheer strategic genius. "That's precisely her danger," Kexol responded, an undercurrent of apprehension in his voice, the kind that often signaled impending disaster. Unaware of the hushed debate swirling around her, Amanda followed the luminescent guide drone through corridors echoing with the very essence of military discipline. Immaculate and orderly, the surroundings exuded an aura of deliberate grandeur. Vast holographic displays adorned the walls, chronicling the triumphs of numerous species, pivotal victories, world-altering battle formations, and groundbreaking strategic advancements that had fundamentally reshaped galactic history. It was a breathtaking testament to past glories, yet it was also on the cusp of obsolescence. The lecture hall, designed to accommodate 300 beings from across the cosmos, was now filled to overflowing. News of the human professor's guest lecture on the fundamental principles of warfare had spread like wildfire through the Academy's networks. The eager learners had arrived, as had the unconvinced, intent on scrutiny. The administrators, tasked with ensuring absolute order, were present to prevent any potential chaos. They were, however, destined for disappointment. Dean Morvac, a venerable figure from a civilization that had achieved interstellar travel through meticulous diplomacy and calculated planning, stood poised at the podium with the practiced grace of one who had introduced countless speakers. "Esteemed colleagues, cadets, and faculty," he began, his words seamlessly translated into dozens of languages by his integrated device. "Today, we are honored by the presence of Professor Amanda Walsh from Earth's Combined Defense Institute. Professor Walsh brings 15 years of dedicated experience in human military education and has generously agreed to share her unique insights into her species' approach to tactical instruction." A polite ripple of applause acknowledged his introduction. Amanda ascended to the podium, her gaze steady. She set her tablet down, gazing at the astounding array of faces, tentacles, crystalline structures, and other varied anatomical forms that populated this galactic sector. "It's a pleasure to be here," she stated, her voice resonating clearly through the hall. "I must confess, when your invitation arrived regarding this cultural exchange, I was quite uncertain what to anticipate. Your message highlighted a desire to comprehend human perspectives on warfare, a rather expansive topic." She tapped her tablet, and the vast display screen behind her illuminated. Thus I decided to pose a straightforward question. Turning to face the assembly, her expression shifted subtly, prompting many to instinctively lean closer. "Do you wish to explore pre-nuclear or post-nuclear warfare? Your answer will guide my choice of reference materials." An intense silence followed, precisely 4 seconds long. Then Cadet Quicktool, diligently taking notes with the focus of a truly eager student, raised his appendage. "Professor Walsh," he inquired, his tone betraying a cautious respect, akin to addressing a potentially dangerous entity. Could you elaborate on the distinction you draw between pre-nuclear and post-nuclear warfare? Amanda blinked. Ah, indeed. Context. She gestured to her tablet. On Earth, we tend to categorize our military history into distinct epochs, defined by our technological advancements. Pre-nuclear encompasses everything from rudimentary stone tools to conventional explosives. Post-nuclear covers the era commencing after we unlocked the power of atomic fission for military applications. She paused, observing the sudden stillness that had settled over several faculty members. We also distinguish between pre-chemical and post-chemical eras, though that's more pertinent for environmental warfare studies. And naturally, we now have pre-space and post-space classifications, still in their nascent stages, as our interstellar conflict experience spans only about 2 decades. Commander Zixara, the Academy's esteemed senior tactical instructor, slowly elevated what might have been a hand had she possessed human anatomy. Professor Walsh, when you refer to categories based on technological capability, are you alluding to different theoretical frameworks? Theoretical? Amanda appeared genuinely puzzled. No, these are historical periods. We employed all these methods at various junctures, often against one another. The Hall's atmospheric regulation system suddenly intensified, working to process the surge in oxygen consumption from 300 beings who had simultaneously begun to breathe with extreme deliberation. You employed nuclear weaponry against your own kind. The question originated from the rear of the hall, voiced by someone whose tone suggested a desperate hope for a misunderstanding of a fundamental concept. Well, yes, Amanda responded, her delivery as casual as discussing passing weather patterns. Twice in major conflicts, but the very threat of their deployment fundamentally shaped military doctrine for decades, profoundly altering our understanding of deterrence, theory, and strategic planning. She tapped her tablet, the screen revealing a simple organizational chart. This is quite elementary, she remarked. Most military academies begin with this fundamental framework in their initial courses. She indicated the display. We have your conventional warfare, your asymmetric, your guerrilla, your economic, your psychological, your information, and your total warfare. Then we delve into specialized domains. Specialized domains? Dean Morvack's voice held the cautious tone of someone anticipating unwelcome knowledge. Certainly. Urban warfare, wilderness warfare, Arctic warfare, desert warfare, jungle warfare, mountain warfare, underground warfare, underwater warfare, aerial warfare, space warfare, and theoretical dimensional warfare, though that last one remains largely academic. The screen refreshed, depicting subcategories branching from each main heading, resembling an intricate family tree. Each domain possesses its own tactical considerations, resource necessities, and strategic ramifications. For instance, urban warfare doctrine diverges entirely from wilderness warfare doctrine due to distinct terrain, civilian factors, and infrastructural vulnerabilities. Cadet Sexed Thu had ceased writing, his stylus hovering, unmoving over his datapad, his gaze fixed on the screen with the look of someone witnessing their core understanding of existence systematically unravel. Professor Walsh, he began slowly, how many of these conflict methodologies has your species actually employed? Amanda considered the query with the focused expression of someone mentally reviewing a comprehensive inventory. All of them, eventually, she responded. Dimensional warfare is still theoretical, of course, but we have research teams investigating it as a contingency. Everything else? Yes, we've utilized all of those at various junctures in our history. Noticing the absolute silence that had fallen over the room, she inquired, is that uncommon? Commander Zara's species, descendants of relentless predators, were renowned galaxy-wide for their composure under duress, their lucid thinking amidst crises, and an unwavering aversion to panic. Commander Zara was now reassessing that evolutionary legacy. "Professor Walsh," she stated, her voice remarkably steady despite her claws subtly extending. "Most species develop one or two principal avenues for conflict resolution. While they might employ varied tactics within those frameworks, they generally refrain from systematically developing methodologies for combat in every conceivable environment." "Oh," Amanda acknowledged, as if this illuminated a lingering puzzle. "That explains why your admission criteria appear so uncomplex. You perceive warfare as a singular discipline, not—" She shifted, a professor embracing a fascinating subject, a palpable excitement igniting as she realized the audience's genuine lack of fundamental understanding. "Humans, you see, relentlessly colonized our planet's diverse landscapes, scorching deserts, soaring mountains, verdant forests, frozen tundras, isolated islands. Long before our advanced technologies emerged, this geographical spread meant that when disputes inevitably arose, we were compelled to master combat across every conceivable terrain. The colossal display updated, unveiling a breathtaking three-dimensional map that elicited hushed gasps of unease from the attendees. "This is merely Earth," Amanda declared, seemingly unfazed by the profound psychological ripple her presentation was causing. "Each distinct color signifies a unique environmental crucible, demanding entirely new warfare doctrines, and this, mind you, predates our battles beyond our atmosphere." Dean Morvac cleared his throat, his query bridging the vast conceptual divide. "Professor Walsh, when you speak of celestial combat, are you referencing your species' recent skirmishes with other interstellar civilizations?" "Oh no," Amanda replied, a casual flick of her wrist dismissing the notion. "I refer to humanity's own internecine conflicts in space. We embarked on this path mere months after establishing our initial permanent orbital outposts." She tapped her tablet, and the screen bloomed with what appeared to be a meticulously charted timeline. Engagements in low orbit commenced around 2157, followed by lunar surface confrontations beginning in 2162, and by 2170, we had meticulously crafted specialized strategies for asteroid belt operations. Our inaugural deep space encounter occurred in 2184, though it was more a fleeting clash than a full-blown war. The timeline gracefully continued its descent, revealing dates and conflict designations arranged in precise, orderly rows. While many of these were ultimately resolved through diplomatic means or contained engagements, they provided invaluable lessons in the intricate tactical demands of three-dimensional warfare within zero-gravity environments, fundamentally reshaping our understanding of logistical chains and casualty evacuation protocols. Cadet Kextool's hand reappeared, his voice tinged with the growing apprehension of one realizing the immensity of the subject. "Professor Walsh, you stated that humans have been engaged in space warfare for over a century. Does this imply your species was conducting military operations in space prior to establishing contact with any other intelligent species?" "Precisely," Amanda affirmed, as if stating the most obvious truth imaginable. "We were forced to forge our understanding of space warfare independently. No one else was present to guide us." She paused, a subtle introspection coloring her demeanor. "In fact, that isolation is likely the very reason our methods diverge so starkly from your familiar paradigms. Most species achieve interstellar capabilities and then encounter others, learning conflict resolution through diplomacy and established alliances. We, however, had to invent everything from the ground up." The ensuing silence was profound, the kind that settles when 300 exceptionally intelligent minds grapple with an utterly unprecedented revelation. A profound realization dawned as minds collectively shifted their understanding. Professor Havdock, an expert in military ethics, had been observing from the rear, intending to document human viewpoints. He now quietly prepared to depart. "Professor Havdock," Dean Morvac called, inquiring about his well-being. "Urgent calls," Havdock replied, his pace unbroken. Amanda, briefly curious about his hasty exit, turned back to the room. "Perhaps I began too complexly," she mused. "I can cover basic tactics if you prefer." Commander Zigzara shifted forward. "Professor Walsh, what are basic tactics?" Amanda's expression brightened. "Ah, the essentials. Superior force, strategic deception, resource denial, morale disruption, targeting infrastructure, and considering the populace." She gestured to her tablet, displaying a list. These principles are fundamental to all conflict, though their application varies by environment and technology. She highlighted the first point. Overwhelming force is direct. Deploy greater capability than your adversary can counter. The challenge lies in defining overwhelming across different scenarios. Equations flickered on the screen. In cities, a 3.1 personnel advantage might secure territory. In open fields, superior mobility could yield the same with a 2-1 ratio. Space warfare introduces complexity with 3-dimensional movement and vast supply chains. Cadet Kextool scribbled, struggling to grasp concepts deemed simple by humans. "Strategic deception is fascinating," Amanda continued. "Mislead your opponent into acting on flawed intelligence. This spans camouflage, misdirection, fake communications, and dummy installations." Diagrams appeared, illustrating millennia of human ingenuity, feigned troop movements, inflatable armaments, and staged military personnel. Sophisticated deception employs layered falsehoods, reinforcing each other. Imagine planting false intelligence about troop movements, while orchestrating feigned radio transmissions concerning supply shortages. Your actual forces are stealthily advancing from an entirely separate direction. Commander Zixara's claws, fully extended, unconsciously dug into her desk's edges. "Professor Walsh," she stated, her voice carefully measured, "these deception tactics you're outlining, they seem astonishingly intricate. How does your species achieve such sophisticated stratagems?" Amanda offered a shrug. "Repetition. We've been engaging in organized deception amongst ourselves for millennia. You become proficient." She seemed to sense the potential unease her statement might evoke. "Primarily," she added, "we utilize these methods against each other. Interstellar conflicts have generally been quite transparent thus far. Most alien civilizations are surprisingly forthright regarding their objectives. The Hall's environmental systems were now strained, working at peak capacity to manage the collective, anxious exhalations of 300 beings who were just beginning to grasp why first contact protocols had undergone 17 revisions since humanity's integration into the galactic community. Yet, Amanda revealed, this was not the most startling revelation. Striding to the subsequent slide with the unruffled assurance of someone oblivious to her systematic deconstruction of fundamental galactic military assumptions, she addressed her audience. The projection screen flickered, and suddenly, every individual in the chamber was fixated on what appeared to be a straightforward pie chart. This merely illustrates human military engagements categorized by their duration, Amanda explained. As you can observe, we possess considerable experience with prolonged confrontations. The chart displayed segments ranging from under a year to over a century, with the most prominent sector boldly marked 3,100 years. The 100 Years' War actually spanned 116 years, which necessitated our classification system's adaptation, Amanda elaborated. That's when we truly began to formulate doctrine for conflicts spanning multiple generations. She surveyed her audience, who stared at the chart with the captivated awe typically reserved for calamitous natural events or breathtakingly explosive spectacles. Multi-generational warfare introduces unique hurdles, as one must contend with evolving technology, shifting political landscapes, and personnel who experience their entire existence within the conflict's span. We had to devise specialized strategies for maintaining strategic coherence across successive generations while concurrently adapting to emergent circumstances. Cadet Quickstow's note-taking had devolved into a frenzy of scribbling. His study partner had completely abandoned the effort, simply gazing at the display with an expression mirroring the collapse of one's entire worldview in real time. The truly compelling cases are those conflicts that endured long enough for their initial impetus to become utterly immaterial, Amanda continued. At that juncture, one is essentially fighting due to ingrained institutional momentum, which fundamentally alters tactical considerations. She gestured to her tablet, and the display presented a new visual. The 30 Years' War, initially a religious struggle, transformed into a political arena, then a territorial dispute, and ultimately concluded as an economic battle. By its close, most original combatants were gone, their heirs now grappling with entirely different concerns. The timeline revealed cascading consequences, originating from the initial clash, with new players emerging and old ones fading, mirroring a vastly intricate family tree. It was then we began formulating theories on conflict metamorphosis and systemic warfare. To engage in multi-generational combat, one must forge military frameworks adaptable to shifting conditions while preserving operational potency. Dean Morvac started to grasp why Professor Havdock had exited. The human scholar was detailing military notions his kind had never needed to contemplate, as they had never faced circumstances demanding such relevance. "Professor Walsh," he stated, his tone reflecting a deliberate effort to remain diplomatically composed, "when you speak of institutional warfare, do you mean conflicts waged between organized armed forces?" "Oh, hardly," Amanda replied, her expression one of surprise. "I refer to contests where the very act of combat becomes institutionalized. The military apparatuses grow self-sustaining, and the conflict persists even when the initial strategic aims have long since lost their meaning." She indicated the screen, where a new depiction materialized. This is remarkably prevalent in human history. We have countless instances of wars continuing long after they ceased to hold strategic justification, simply because the institutions created to wage them had acquired too much political or economic significance to disband. The diagram illustrated a feedback loop, with arrows linking military expenditure, political sway, financial gains, and ongoing conflict, forming a circular pattern devoid of any clear exit. The fascinating aspect is that these institutionalized conflicts often yield our most groundbreaking military advancements, owing to professional military establishments enjoying consistent funding and extended strategic foresight. Amanda progressed to the subsequent slide, seemingly oblivious that she was delineating a mode of warfare most species would deem a symptom of profound societal breakdown. For example, some of our most sophisticated aerial technologies were honed during protracted struggles between political blocs that spanned decades. The rivalry spurred innovation in ways peacetime research could never match. She gestured towards a sequence of technical schematics showcasing progressively advanced weaponry. This is where human military principles fundamentally diverge from what I observe in your scholarly resources. Most species appear to regard warfare as a fleeting interruption to conventional political. Humanity views conflict as a routine political and economic endeavor, occasionally punctuated by periods of peace. The profound silence that descended was disturbed only by the gentle hum of environmental systems operating at peak capacity. Commander Zigzara had ceased breathing. Cadet Cthulhu gazed at his notes, his expression mirroring the dawning realization that he had been enrolled in the wrong course for the entire academic term. Dean Morvac was meticulously drafting what he intended to be the most tactfully phrased emergency communique he had ever composed. Professor Amanda Walsh, meanwhile, glanced at her watch. "We have approximately 40 minutes remaining," she announced with cheerful alacrity. "Shall I proceed to the segment on psychological warfare, or would you prefer to dedicate more time to the institutional frameworks?" She surveyed her assembly with an expectant air, genuinely convinced she was imparting valuable knowledge. "I have some truly compelling case studies concerning propaganda methodologies and morale disruption strategies that I believe you will find most beneficial." These were the Academy's customary inter-session transition alerts, intended to allow students time to relocate between classrooms. However, within the context of Professor Walsh's discourse, they resonated as the galaxy's most ill-timed musical accompaniment. "Ah, break time," Professor Walsh remarked, consulting her digital slate. "Excellent. Upon our return, I will commence with the psychological warfare section. A fair warning, it becomes rather intense." She offered a smile to the audience, radiating an enthusiasm that suggested she truly considered intensity an appealing characteristic. The hall dissolved into a controlled pandemonium, the predictable outcome when 300 exceptionally trained military minds simultaneously grappled with information for which they were utterly unprepared. Individuals congregated in hushed clusters, engaged in urgent whispers. Data slates were rapidly consulted. Several faculty members made discreet departures. Cadet Cthulhu remained seated, his gaze fixed on his notes, his countenance reflecting the shock of discovering his fundamental understanding of mathematics was entirely incorrect. "This cannot be standard," he murmured to his study companion, a silicon-based life form whose species had achieved preeminence across the galaxy through meticulous resource administration and strategic foresight. "No civilization engages in such extensive conflict." His partner's crystalline lattice pulsed with intricate patterns, signifying profound contemplation. "The data indicates a contrary perspective. Observe these chronologies." They leaned over Kexto's notes, striving to comprehend the human professor's matter-of-fact allusions to centuries of protracted hostilities and multi-generational doctrines of warfare. She noted that humans have been warring amongst themselves in space for over 100 years, Kextool stated, referencing the period preceding their initial encounters with other species. This implies they developed interstellar military capacities and immediately turned them upon each other. Most species develop interstellar capabilities and subsequently encounter other civilizations, his partner observed. Such contact typically results in either harmonious coexistence or brief. Conflicts yield to peace, yet this human perceives war as an ever-present force. Up front, Commander Zixara and Dean Morvik engaged in a similar, increasingly urgent exchange, grasping the weight of the presented truths. "She isn't exaggerating, Karma," Zixara confirmed, her claws rhythmically tapping her data slate as she reviewed her findings. "I've been verifying her claims against our pre-integration cultural briefings. The historical accounts validate every word. Morvik's species, descended from herd creatures, naturally favored harmony and shunned discord. The concept of organized conflict was utterly foreign to their very being. How can this possibly be sustainable?" he questioned. "If humans are perpetually at war, how do they foster technological leaps, population expansion, or societal progress?" "That is precisely my concern," Commander Zara admitted. Her presentation suggests they don't progress despite constant warfare, but because of it. She indicated her notes, abundant with diagrams illustrating how military rivalry fueled innovation. She portrayed conflict as a catalyst for advancement, not a hindrance. This perspective starkly contrasts with every other species' understanding of war's relationship with development. The brief pause extended, faculty members murmuring amongst themselves, discreetly contacting their homelands. Amanda Walsh, meanwhile, reread her own notes, observing the hushed, animated conversations with a detached bemusement, a quiet confusion over the widespread consternation regarding fundamental military history. When the session reconvened, the hall had thinned slightly. Some departed, deeming other matters more critical. Those remaining appeared noticeably more vigilant, more intently focused, and profoundly more apprehensive. "Very well," Amanda announced, returning to the lectern with the practiced ease of a seasoned educator. "Let us delve into psychological warfare." She tapped her tablet, revealing what seemed to be a straightforward organizational chart. This is where human military strategy truly captivates. We discovered early on that physical annihilation isn't always the most potent approach. Often, shattering an opponent's resolve is far more impactful. The chart enumerated categories: propaganda, morale disruption, terror tactics, information warfare, and cultural subversion. The core tenet is that any fighting force relies on the mental fortitude of its members. If their confidence, loyalty, or conviction in their mission can be eroded, victory can be achieved without direct engagement. Cadet Cocteau's hand lifted hesitantly. "Professor Walsh, when you speak of terror tactics, do you mean merely intimidation strategies?" "Terror tactics encompass far more than intimidation," Amanda responded. "Intimidation aims to make your adversary fear combat. Terror tactics aim to make them fear existence itself." She transitioned to the next visual, revealing what appeared to be a historical progression. During the 13th century Mongol expansion, for instance, human armies annihilated resisting cities, then disseminated vivid accounts of their devastation to neighboring territories. The objective extended beyond quelling opposition. It was to render resistance psychologically infeasible. The timeline depicted a pattern of expanding dominion, seemingly accelerating as news of past destruction preceded the advancing forces. This proves to be a remarkably efficient method of conquest. Rather than engaging in every skirmish, one fights a select few with absolute decisiveness, allowing dread to accomplish the remainder. Commander Zara's species possessed advanced combat instincts, yet these were honed for individual survival, not large-scale psychological manipulation. "Professor Walsh," she stated with careful consideration, "you are delineating the intentional cultivation of fear as a military stratagem. Does this approach not foster enduring instability?" "Indeed," Amanda concurred. "Control rooted in terror is profoundly precarious. It demands ceaseless reinforcement and inevitably breeds insurgencies. Most human military strategists deem it effective for swift conquest, but detrimental for lasting governance." She indicated the screen as a new schematic emerged. "This is why we devised more sophisticated methodologies. Modern psychological warfare prioritizes information control and narrative shaping over overt terror tactics." The diagram illustrated what resembled an intricate network of information conduits, with arrows linking media outlets, governmental sources, and public perception in configurations reminiscent of an exceptionally elaborate spiderweb. The core principle is to shape your adversary's beliefs regarding the conflict, their own capacities, and their prospects for triumph. Should you convince them they are faltering, they will commence making choices as if they are, thereby increasing their likelihood of actual defeat. She proceeded to the subsequent slide, which presented case studies from what appeared to be recent human conflicts. For example, during the 2203 Europa mining conflicts, human forces employed fabricated intelligence reports and orchestrated communications to persuade the Martian colonial authority that Earth had deployed thrice the number of ships we possessed. The MCA realigned their deployments to confront a phantom threat, leaving their actual positions vulnerable to our genuine forces. The case study displayed tactical maneuvers that seemed to evolve organically from the deceptive intelligence, creating a cascade of blunders led to total tactical ruin. Information warfare's brilliance lies in your adversary doing most of the work. Merely seeding the right falsehoods at opportune moments ensures their self-destruction. Dean Morvac was beginning to grasp the profound necessity of extensive diplomatic protocols for human integration. The species he observed had elevated warfare to applied psychology, viewing enemy decision-making as merely another system ripe for manipulation. "Professor Walsh," he inquired, his tone reflecting a struggle to comprehend something profoundly alien. "You're describing military strategies reliant on deep psychological insight into your adversaries. How do humans acquire this understanding?" "Oh, that's quite simple," Amanda replied. "We study ourselves." She touched her tablet, revealing what appeared to be an academic course catalog. Most human military academies boast comprehensive programs in cultural analysis, behavioral psychology, and decision-making theory. We dedicate as much effort to understanding how minds operate as we do to studying weapon mechanics. The catalog displayed courses titled Cognitive Bias Exploitation, Cultural Vulnerability Assessment, and Psychological Profiling for Strategic Planning. The fundamental truth is, humans excel at understanding fellow humans due to millennia of internal competition. We precisely know how to instill fear, anger, confusion, or despair, having honed these skills against each other for eons. She paused, perhaps sensing the unsettling nature of her confession. Primarily, we employ these methods amongst ourselves. When encountering alien species, we must tailor our strategies, as distinct species possess unique psychological vulnerabilities. The ensuing silence was profound, a collective realization that their entire framework of understanding had been fundamentally flawed. Cadet Questall had ceased his note-taking, his gaze fixed on the display, mirroring the expression of someone who had just discovered their seemingly benign exchange partner was, in fact, a master manipulator who had been psychologically dissecting them since their initial encounter. "Professor Walsh," he articulated slowly, "when you mention humans adapting strategies for different species, are you implying your kind has developed psychological warfare techniques specifically tailored for extraterrestrial civilizations?" Amanda appeared genuinely taken aback by the query. "Well, yes," she responded. "I mean, that's fundamental strategic planning. You cannot apply the same psychological tactics to a hive-minded species as you would to individual decision-makers, and species with divergent sensory apparatus necessitate entirely different approaches to information warfare." She gestured to the screen, where a new diagram materialized. She presented what seemed to be a deep dive into the psychological frailties of diverse alien life forms. For example, species that make decisions collectively are susceptible to tactics that shatter their unity, while those with rigid leadership structures are vulnerable to crippling attacks on their command. Charts displayed intricate decision pathways, seemingly anticipating every conceivable nuance of alien minds and societal frameworks. We've crafted specialized strategies for telepathic beings, hive minds, silicon-based entities, energy-based life forms, and even for hypothetical encounters with species yet undiscovered. She moved to the subsequent slide, seemingly oblivious to the fact that she was detailing military preparations, suggesting humanity had long anticipated engaging in conflict with every conceivable alien form. The truly formidable challenges involve species possessing entirely alien sensory apparatus. How does one wage psychological conflict against a species that perceives existence through shifting electromagnetic fields? Conventional methods of influence are utterly useless. Commander Zixara had again ceased to breathe. "Professor Walsh," she managed to utter, "you're outlining military doctrines that prepare for psychological warfare against species your civilization has never encountered." "Correct," Amanda affirmed, nodding as though this were the most ordinary concept. "One must always prepare for unforeseen circumstances. What if we encounter a species that communicates through chemical signals? What if we encounter beings existing across multiple dimensions simultaneously? You cannot afford to wait until you're embroiled in a conflict to devise effective countermeasures. She gazed at her assembly with the eager countenance of someone convinced she was imparting invaluable strategic insights. This is quite standard military procedure. You cultivate capabilities before the necessity arises, not in its aftermath. The hall's climate control systems struggled to cope with the synchronized, distressful inhalations of 300 beings rapidly converging on a single, stark realization about humanity's position in the broader galactic order. But that was not the most startling revelation, Amanda declared, progressing to the next slide with the unconcerned assurance of someone entirely unaware she was systematically dismantling the fundamental tenets of interstellar diplomacy. The screen shimmered to life, displaying what appeared to be a straightforward logistics diagram. Amanda Walsh stood beside it, her expression one of pleased anticipation, as if about to reveal her most cherished subject. "Now we reach the truly engaging portion," she announced. "How humanity transformed supply chain management into an art form of strategic supremacy." The diagram depicted complex, interconnected networks of manufacturing, transit, and delivery, spanning what seemed to be numerous star systems. Lines linked production hubs to resource extraction sites and then to forward combat positions, forming intricate, three-dimensional patterns reminiscent of a spider's web. Most see logistics as merely moving things, but Amanda revealed a chilling truth. Humans view logistics, she explained, as total dominion over every step from origin to destination, wielding that control to dictate who battles and who perishes from want. Kadir Kix Thul, observing the display, felt a growing dread. His own civilization's interstellar reach was built upon meticulous resource stewardship and seamless distribution. The depicted scenario, however, seemed like a perversion of those very principles, transformed into instruments of war. "Professor Walsh," he began, his voice laced with apprehension, "are you suggesting that humanity weaponizes supply lines?" Amanda's reply was stark and unembellished. "Supply lines are indeed weapons," she stated matter-of-factly, "simply ones that unfold over a longer, more insidious timeline than explosives." She gestured to her tablet, the screen zooming into a segment of the network, revealing resource flows deliberately rerouted. "During the asteroid belt consolidation in 2195, she continued, human forces bypassed direct assaults on the Colonial Mining Consortium's installations. Instead, we seized control of the crucial shipping routes vital for transporting their refined materials to market." The diagram illustrated cargo rerouted through human-controlled junctures, where bureaucratic hurdles and deliberate inspection delay unleashed cascading disruptions across the entire logistical web. "Within 6 months," Amanda elaborated, "the consortium's clientele were actively seeking alternative providers. By 12 months, the consortium was forced to negotiate surrender terms. We never discharged a single weapon at their primary facilities." Commander Zara studied the intricate display with a profound, almost awestruck fascination, akin to witnessing an unprecedented masterclass in strategic thinking. "You're describing economic warfare," she murmured, the words slow and deliberate. "Economic warfare is merely logistics imbued with hostile intent," Amanda affirmed. "The profound elegance of controlling supply chains lies in allowing your adversaries to orchestrate their own downfall. Their military operations falter without resources, and their access to those resources is throttled by systems under your command." She advanced to the subsequent slide, which presented a case study from more recent conflicts. "The truly sophisticated strategy," she explained, "is to cultivate dependency on your logistics networks within your adversaries before hostilities commence. Then, at the onset of conflict, there's no need for direct attacks on their supply lines. You simply cease providing." The case study unfolded a complex tapestry of trade relationships, meticulously nurtured over decades, forging dependencies that remained hidden until they were deliberately activated as potent weapons. This, Amanda emphasized, is why human merchant vessels instill such profound unease in other species traders. We are not merely engaging in commerce, we are simultaneously gathering intelligence, forging alliances, and meticulously mapping infrastructure that can be repurposed for military objectives. A profound chill, unrelated to the Hall's climate control, settled over Bonin Morvac. His species maintained extensive trade partnerships with human merchants, relationships that now seemed alarmingly less about routine exchange and more about a calculated, strategic vulnerability. This isn't mere commerce, it's the art of strategic foresight, Professor Walsh declared, his tone measured. You're framing our commercial endeavors as military reconnaissance, L-Human. Indeed, Amanda responded smoothly, her voice effortlessly casual, as if stating the most basic truth. Our traders are meticulously trained to survey infrastructure, meticulously catalog resources, and keenly identify strategic weak points. It's simply astute business practice. She gracefully indicated the expansive screen before them, where a new intricate diagram unfurled, visually charting commercial shipping lanes that, with uncanny precision, mirrored every significant industrial hub, every vital military installation, and every critical resource depot across 3 star systems. The wealth of data we glean from our routine trade operations provides us with unparalleled insight into production capacities, resource interdependencies, and logistical frailties throughout the entirety of the galactic economy. The diagram shimmered with live indicators, vividly displaying real-time cargo movements, precise inventory levels, and complex transportation schedules, inadvertently revealing far more about military readiness than most species ever suspected they were divulging. When you possess an exact understanding of every world's food, fuel, and ammunition production and consumption, predicting their capacity to sustain military operations without external aid becomes remarkably straightforward. Cadet Kutol gazed at the illuminated display, his expression one of dawning comprehension, as if realizing his entire civilization's economic framework was laid bare for human scrutiny. "You've been charting our vulnerabilities," he breathed, his voice barely a whisper. "We've been charting everyone's vulnerabilities, Cadet," Amanda corrected gently. "It's not personal. It's merely prudent, strategic planning." With a deft touch on her tablet, the display expanded, encompassing what seemed to be the vast expanse of the known galaxy. This represents our current economic intelligence archive. Every artery of trade, every manufacturing nexus, every repository of goods, every critical transit bottleneck within galactic space. The archive unfolded in layers, starkly revealing the economic scaffolding of interstellar civilization with an almost surgical clarity. Resource arteries, intricate dependency webs, and critical points of weakness were mapped with a detail suggesting not years, but decades of painstaking observation and analysis. The truly fascinating aspect, Amanda mused, a hint of genuine bewilderment in her voice, is how effortlessly most species facilitate this intelligence gathering. They openly publish their trade statistics, their production metrics, and their logistical timetables as public records. "We dedicated years to developing sophisticated reconnaissance methodologies," she continued, "only to discover that most civilizations will willingly disclose their strategic vulnerabilities, provided you simply inquire politely." The ensuing quiet was punctuated only by the subtle, almost imperceptible scraping of Commander Zixara's claws against her desk, her hands unconsciously tightening. "Professor Walsh," she finally spoke, her voice laced with a barely suppressed tension, "you are detailing a systematic intelligence operation targeting every species across the galaxy. Systematic intelligence gathering concerning every species encountered thus far, Amanda clarified. We're still developing comprehensive profiles for those in the outer spiral arms. She progressed to the next slide, seemingly oblivious that her description of activities would be viewed as acts of war by most species. The truly daunting task involves crafting contingency plans for conflicts yet to arise. One must model potential alliances, forecast wartime resource allocation, and devise strategies to disrupt supply networks that may not even exist until after hostilities commence. The screen displayed theoretical conflict scenarios encompassing every conceivable combination of alliances, trade agreements, and strategic partnerships within known space. For instance, should the hegemony and the collective forge a military pact against the Trade Federation, we've already pinpointed the 17 most crucial supply choke points that would ultimately decide the war's outcome. She gestured to locations on the display, highlighted in red, indicating vital transportation hubs and resource centers forming the bedrock of hypothetical military endeavors. We have meticulously detailed plans to either bolster or undermine those choke points, depending on which course best serves humanity's interests. Bean Morvac grasped that the human professor was casually outlining strategic planning that presumed human involvement in non-existent conflicts between species with no current disputes. "You intend to meddle in hypothetical conflicts?" he inquired, his voice laced with the astonishment of someone whose foundational beliefs in peaceful coexistence had just been shattered. "We are preparing for the possibility that we may need to intervene in hypothetical conflicts," Amanda responded. "There's a crucial distinction." She gazed at her audience with an expression of someone who sincerely believed she was detailing standard strategic planning protocols. "The paramount objective is maintaining strategic adaptability. You cannot commit to specific alliance structures until you understand how conflicts unfold, yet you must possess the capacity to shape outcomes regardless of how events transpire." The hall's environmental systems had long ceased attempting to filter the collective, stressed exhalations of 300 beings who were rapidly drawing profoundly unsettling conclusions about human strategic thought. "But the truly remarkable achievement," Amanda stated, moving to what seemed to be the final segment of her presentation, "is its integration into our educational framework." The display showcased what appeared to be an exhaustive curriculum encompassing every facet of strategic planning, intelligence acquisition, and conflict preparedness she had just elucidated. Every human undergoing our standard educational system receives fundamental instruction in strategic analysis, resource evaluation, and contingency planning. Our military academies instill strategic thinking in every cadet. "We teach everyone," she explained, gesturing with obvious pride toward the curriculum. "By adulthood, humans instinctively assess any civilization's strategic vulnerabilities, resource dependencies, and potential military might." Cadet Kexthal realized with dawning horror that his friendly human exchange partners had been unconsciously analyzing his academy, his home system, and likely his entire species. "You've made strategic thinking a fundamental life skill," he whispered, stunned. "It is a fundamental life skill," Amanda replied, genuinely perplexed. "How else do you navigate complex social and economic interactions?" The Academy's AI simultaneously began recording. The soft chime of the learning system activated, a subtle sound lost on an audience grappling with Amanda Walsh's revelations. Commander Zixara, however, attuned to her species' heightened auditory senses and recognizing the AI's analytic harmonic frequency, understood the station was logging this for permanent integration. "Professor Walsh," she interrupted, her voice sharp with urgency, "I must ask you a direct question." Amanda paused, tablet ready, a welcoming expression for clarification. "Of course," she said warmly. "How can I help?" "Everything you've described today," Commander Zixara stated deliberately, "the various warfare types, psychological operations, economic intelligence, strategic planning for hypothetical conflicts. You've called this basic curriculum? Amanda nodded. It's all introductory material. Introductory to what? The question hung heavy, hinting at a looming diplomatic crisis. Amanda seemed genuinely bewildered. Introductory to military science, she clarified. These are first-year courses at human military academies. The advanced work is where it truly gets fascinating. She tapped her tablet, revealing the Combined Defense Institute's course catalog. ZAMP, Strategic Deception, Multidimensional Warfare Theory, Xenopsychological Exploitation, Temporal Conflict Doctrine, Preemptive Infrastructure Disruption. That's where we delve into the sophisticated applications. The catalog scrolled, displaying numerous courses with titles that suggested a systematic weaponization of every academic field, including specialized tracks for. Dean Mulvack surveyed the varied disciplines: space-based conflict specialists, economic sabotage analysts, cultural destabilization experts, and pact-shaping coordinators. As he scanned the course descriptions, a chilling awareness dawned. Humanity had perfected the art of strategic thinking to an extent unimagined by other civilizations. Professor Walsh, he began, his tone carefully modulated. When you mention pact-shaping coordinators, are you referring to diplomatic roles? Amanda replied, not at all. Diplomats operate on an entirely different plane. Our coordinators are masters at forging, fracturing, and subtly redirecting interstellar relationships to advance humanity's strategic aims. She gestured to the screen, where a complex geopolitical scenario unfolded involving numerous species. Consider this. Should we wish to thwart a military pact between Species A and Species B, a pact-shaping coordinator might orchestrate a more advantageous trade agreement for Species A with Species C, while concurrently planting seeds of doubt in Species B's mind regarding Species A's reliability. The presented case study illustrated a domino effect of political realignments, leading to the dissolution of the original alliance, with both species subsequently becoming more reliant on human arbitration. The ultimate aim, she explained, is to architect the cosmic political landscape so that human interests are invariably served, irrespective of how individual disputes ultimately resolve. Cadet Sex Thule felt a cold dread creep into his being as he understood that every political shift in his homeworld's sector over the past 5 years could be viewed through the prism of calculated human orchestration. You are describing the systematic orchestration of galactic politics, he stated. We prefer the term systematic cultivation of galactic politics, Amanda corrected gently. The notion of control implies a level of direct dominion that would prove politically untenable. Influence, however, is far more subtle and enduring. She advanced to the next display, revealing a sophisticated network diagram mapping political connections across known space. The elegance of influence-based strategies lies in allowing other species to chart their own courses. Our role is simply to shape the informational currents and incentive structures, guiding their choices to align with our strategic objectives. The network diagram shimmered with vibrant indicators, depicting trade flows, diplomatic overtures, and military alliances that seem to converge through human-controlled nexus points, their patterns discernible only to those with a keen eye for the underlying architecture. Most species, she continued, remain blissfully unaware they are being guided, as our methods are meticulously crafted to feel like organic political evolution. Commander Zixara gazed at the diagram, a profound realization dawning. Her entire understanding of recent interstellar affairs was fundamentally flawed. Professor Walsh, she voiced, her words measured, are you suggesting that humanity has been shaping galactic political destinies since our very first encounter? We have been subtly guiding galactic political development since our initial overtures, she confirmed. First contact, Amanda clarified, her tone suggesting manipulation implied deception. "We're quite transparent about our own strategic interests." She seemed genuinely perplexed by the distinction. Every species, she reasoned, acts to serve its own interests. Humanity simply approaches it with greater method. The Academy's AI system chimed softly again, this time followed by a series of harmonious progressions that signaled rapid data processing and analysis integration. Morgo recognized the sound. The Academy's learning system wasn't merely recording Amanda's presentation. It was updating its strategic assessment databases in real time. "Computer," he commanded, activating the hall's communication system. "Please pause all data integration protocols." "Data integration protocols cannot be paused during active learning sessions," the AI replied in its neutral academic voice. "All presented information is being analyzed for incorporation into standard military curriculum." Amanda beamed. "Oh, that's wonderful. I was wondering how you distributed course materials to other institutions." "Computer," Commander Zigzara interjected urgently, "classify Professor Walsh's presentation as restricted information. Information presented during authorized academic sessions cannot be retroactively classified as restricted," the AI responded. "All analysis and integration protocols will continue as scheduled." Dean Morvik felt the diplomatic equivalent of witnessing a natural disaster unfold in slow motion. "Professor Walsh," he said, his voice carrying the controlled panic of someone desperately trying to prevent an interstellar incident. "I believe we should conclude today's session." "But I haven't even finished the advanced topic section," Amanda protested. "I was just getting to the truly compelling aspects of dimensional warfare theory and temporal conflict doctrine." "Perhaps we should save that for another time," Dean Morvik suggested with the desperate politeness of someone attempting to avert the complete restructuring of galactic military doctrine. "Computer," Commander Zara tried once more, "please contact the Academy Review Board immediately." "The Academy Review Board has already been notified of this session's content," the AI replied. "They have requested that all analysis be expedited for immediate distribution to member institutions." Amanda surveyed the hall with the confused expression of someone utterly bewildered by the palpable tension. "Is there a problem?" she asked. "I know the material is quite advanced, but I assumed this was a military academy." "It is a military academy," Cadet Quigthul stated quietly. "That," he added, "is the problem." The Academy's communication system chimed with an incoming priority message. Dean Morvak accepted the call, and instantly the hall's main display revealed the concerned visage of Admiral Brixnell, the Academy's senior oversight coordinator. "Dean Morv," Admiral Brixell began without preamble, "we've been monitoring the session. Please inform Professor Walsh that her presentation has been class." Amanda regarded the screen with intrigue. "Oh, hello there. Are you the department head? I have a few questions about your curriculum standards." Admiral Brixtonell regarded the human professor with an expression of dawning realization that he was looking at a walking violation of every intelligent security protocol in existence. "Professor Walsh," he said carefully, "we must discuss the classification level of the information you've been sharing." "Classification level?" Amanda looked genuinely perplexed. "This is all basic academic material. Much of it is readily available in public databases on Earth." "Public databases," Admiral Brixtonell repeated slowly. "Certainly, Earth University libraries, military academy course catalogs, strategic studies journals. Anyone can access this information." The subsequent silence was the kind that heralds significant shifts in galactic policy. The computer chimed. Admiral Brixtonell finally stated, "Please initiate emergency protocols for strategic intelligence reassessment." "Emergency protocols initiated," the AI responded. "All member species have been notified of potential strategic doctrine revisions. Updated threat assessment models are being distributed to relevant military commands." Amanda observed this exchange with escalating confusion. "I'm sorry," she said, "but I don't understand why everyone seems so disturbed. Did I say something incorrect?" Dean Morvac looked at the human professor who had inadvertently triggered the most extensive military intelligence review in galactic history. "Professor Walsh," he said with the weary tone of someone who had aged several years in mere moments, "I don't believe your species truly comprehends how your approach to strategic thinking is perceived by other civilizations." "What do you mean?" Amanda inquired. "You've detailed warfare capabilities, intelligence-gathering operations, and political manipulation techniques that most species would interpret as evidence of hostile intent." Amanda blinked. "But we haven't utilized any of this against galactic species." "You've described possessing the capacity to employ all of this against galactic species," Commander Zara pointed out. "And you've indicated that developing such capabilities is considered standard educational practice among humans." "Well," Amanda said slowly, "it is standard educational practice." "That's precisely what makes it terrifying," Cadet Quelto muttered. The Academy's communication system activated once more, this time broadcasting an urgent dispatch from the Galactic Defense Coordination Council. "Attention! All academic institutions are advised that human strategic doctrine assessment is now designated a Level 7 security priority," the message declared. "Updated diplomatic protocols are being implemented with immediate effect." Amanda surveyed the hall, meeting the gazes of beings who were regarding her with a potent mix of awe, apprehension, and a profound reevaluation of all their prior assumptions. Humanity's place in galactic civilization was a revelation. Dean Morvac, with the delicate tact of averting an interstellar crisis, suggested a potential misinterpretation of the desired presentation. "Professor Walsh," he stated, "would you consider further discussions with our strategic assessment teams?" Amanda readily agreed, adding, "This was merely introductory material. For advanced human strategic doctrine, you'd likely need to consult a war college." A collective gasp, akin to atmospheric decompression, rippled through the 300 beings present. Admiral Brixell, his voice laced with hesitant curiosity, inquired from the display, "Professor Walsh, how many such institutions does humanity possess?" Amanda mused. 17 major institutions, 43 specialized academies, around 200 regional training centers, and classified facilities, though exact numbers are unavailable. Commander Zix's claws scraped slowly across her desk, breaking the profound silence. Dean Morvac declared, "Please schedule an immediate session with the Galactic Security Council." The AI responded, "Meeting priority elevated to Code 7, Fundamental Strategic Reassessment." Amanda surveyed the hall, noting the dawning comprehension on the faces of beings poised to redefine interstellar politics for eons. "Should I prepare for the advanced course next semester?" she inquired, her hope evident. The question hung, a diplomatic time bomb ticking. Cadet Thule, his voice imbued with the quiet conviction of someone whose galactic perspective had been utterly upended, finally broke the tension. "Professor Walsh," he stated, "I doubt the galaxy is prepared for your advanced course." Amanda thoughtfully concurred. "Yes, you're likely correct. We should perhaps begin with fundamental concepts." She gathered her belongings, a satisfied smile suggesting a successful introductory lecture. "Perhaps next time, I'll present human diplomatic doctrine. That might suit a broader audience." A palpable shudder from the remaining attendees hinted that humanity's diplomatic methods would be yet another complex discussion. As Professor Amanda Walsh departed, she left behind 300 beings whose perception of human civilization had been irrevocably altered, an AI frantically recalibrating threat assessments, and a galaxy slowly awakening to its profound misunderstanding of Earth. The Academy's upcoming term was in truth indefinitely delayed, and adrift in the vast cosmic ocean, 17 distinct species intelligence agencies embarked upon the grandest strategic re-evaluation the galaxy had ever witnessed. Each sought to unravel a single, profound mystery. If this was what humanity deemed rudimentary schooling, what precisely were their true military strengths? A disquieting uncertainty lingered, a fear of discovering the answer.